through the blessings of the lotus-born Lord, through the blessings of the aspiration of Aryatara, by the truth of the interdependent origination, may the life of Ani Zamba Chözom remain firm and benefit beings like myself. When were you born?
I was born in August 1948. 1948. Yes, it was after the war in England. So,
Ani, do you have consciousness about other lives you had?
all I know is that I was African in one life and Asian in one life. That
You are sure?
I don't know where in Africa. All I know is that when I was a child, I never wanted to be white. I would paint myself black. I wouldn't go out the house unless I was black. Everything was painted black. I didn't like white at all. I thought white was dishonest. And when I was a child, I had a very strong connection with Chinese art, which I felt that I must have been Asian to appreciate this kind. Because there was no reason for me to have this kind of connection. The only thing I felt safe with was a statue of the Buddha. When I was 5 years old, my family was screaming and shouting all the time, lots of conflicts, my mother and father, and I would just go and sit in front of this Buddha. That was the only safe place. That was my refuge, this Buddha statue. And I said to my mother, "What's that?" She said, "I don't know. Buddha." I said, "Well, what's that?" I remember saying as a child, "But what's that?" "I don't know. I found it in a shop. I don't know." And yet every day I would go down there and I'd sit there in front of this Buddha. And that was the only safe place. So, we have these connections we don't know, really. Very seldom do you really know your past life clearly. These teachers, they know their past life. Sometimes they can remember exactly, where they were born, the family, and everything. And one of my teachers can actually paint what he looked like in 6 different lifetimes before. He painted these different images of his different lives. But most people, they don't remember. Okay, so, in the 90s, I was living in an island in Hong Kong. And Chagdud Ripunche, I invited Chagdud Ripunche to come and teach in this place where I was living. I had made a center there, which was a community center. It was called Wisdom Heart. It wasn't a Buddhist center. It was a center for anybody who wanted to share some kind of spiritual orientation or healing with other people. And I invited Rinpoche twice or 3 times. Chagdud Rinpoche went to Hong Kong to give teachings to my group there. And then in 94, I had serious surgery where I spent almost 10 months in hospital. And I didn't start walking till, I suppose, 95. I started being able to walk again. And I went to visit Rinpoche in America. He was living in America in 95, 96. And he said to me, I'm moving to Brazil, Chagdud Ripunche. This was 95, 96. He said, I'm moving to Brazil. I'm leaving America. I'm going to live in Brazil. So I said, oh, that sounds interesting, Rinpoche. He said, yes, I want to do something for the people, in general. I want to bring these teachings to the people so they can benefit. But he felt in America it was too restrictive. He couldn't really do things in the way that he wanted. He wanted to build a temple, but there was lots of laws and regulations, how you have to build, where you have to build. Anyway, he just felt that he'd had enough of America. And people from Brazil were beginning to go to Northern California, where he lived, and they began to invite him to come to Brazil. They said, please, Rinpoche, come to Brazil, come to São Paulo, come. And then he went to Brazil to visit, and he liked it. And then again they said, please, Rinpoche, why don't you come and live in Brazil? And nobody in America thought he would ever move from America, because he had everything, everything. And he just said, yes, I think I'll move to Brazil. And everybody, what? Yes? You're not so young, you want to start again? There's nothing there, you don't have any center, nothing at all. And he said, yes. He said, I want to move to Brazil. And I telephoned Rinpoche one day and I said, look, you're getting older and I'm getting sicker and maybe one of us is going to die soon. It would be good if we came together, we spent time together. I would like to start a project for street children. I had this idea that I would start something for the children who lived in the street. And he said to me, well, first, all right, you come and visit Brazil for 2 months. And that was 1999. And I went down to the south, where they were building the Gompa, Três Coroas. And before I went to Três Coroas, when I was in a long retreat, I began to have dreams or visions about Salvador. I didn't know anything about anything. I didn't know where Salvador was. But anyway, I kept hearing Salvador, Salvador, Salvador. And then one day I was walking in the street in Hong Kong and I saw somebody I hadn't seen for a long time. And I said, where have you been? And this man said, oh, I've been in Salvador. Ah, Salvador? El Salvador? No, Salvador in Bahia, in Brazil. I said, what were you doing there? He said, I was learning drumming. So I said, that's interesting. Anyway, I came to Brazil. I went down to the south to visit Chagdud Ripunche in Três Coroas. And one of my first questions was, Rinpoche, what do you know about Salvador? I feel I have a connection with Salvador. And he said to me, oh no. And then I started having other dreams, which said, 6-7 hours from Salvador, there's a place with many mountains, beautiful waterfalls. And I asked the people, I said, you know this place? Beautiful waterfalls. And everybody said, Chapada Diamantina. So then I went to Chapada Diamantina by myself, and I traveled around looking at different places, seeing if I felt a connection with any of the places. And I was offered land. I was offered 10 hectares in Barashdeva. I was offered 30 hectares in Kapong, which is very famous. I was offered 50 hectares in Piatan. But I wasn't offered any land in Mukuche. And Mukuche was the place I felt a connection with. So then I went back down south again to see Rinpoche. And I said, I think you should come up to Chapada Diamantina and look and see if you feel a connection with the place. So then he came again. We both went up to Chapada Diamantina and he felt a connection with Pieta. Anyway, Rinpoche then saw, he said, you want to come and live in Brazil? This was 1999. He said, are you ready to leave Asia and come and live in Brazil? So I said, yes, I'm not doing much in Asia anymore. I would like some new kind of energy, something, new challenges. So he said, okay, you come back to Brazil and you can be my representative for the northeast of Brazil. So then I arrived in New Year's Eve, 1999. But I didn't feel I wanted to be in the south. I didn't like the south of Brazil very much at all. I thought it was too European. I thought if I want to live in Europe, I'll live in Europe. I don't have to live in Brazil to live in Europe. And so then Rinpoche saw that I had a connection with the northeast of Brazil, more than the south. So then he said, look, Salvador is no good for you. He said, and there's no one to take care of you in Salvador. But you should go to Maceió, because I have a student, Marcus, and Marcus can take care of all your doctors. He can give you a place to stay, and he can sponsor you, all your needs. You should go to Maceió. So then I came up to Maceió the first time, and Marcus and I, we went around. He actually took a plane, a small plane, so we could go over Alagor, we could look at Alagor. But there was nowhere that I felt connected with to make the center. And then one day, Marcus says to me, my grandmother bought an old house in Pahol, which she uses just to put the old tires from the pneus, tires from the cars, because they have the Volkswagen dealership, yeah? So they used it as a storeroom. They just threw all the garbage in this place. And so I said to Marcus, you think she would give this house to us to use as a center? So she said, I'll talk to her. So So then she agreed, and then I went into the house and I said, okay, Marcus, we need to take that wall out, take that out, take it, change that, take that, take it. And then we invited Chagdud Ripunche to come up. And it was so funny because Rinpoche said, yeah, you need to take that wall out, take that. Everything that the same vision I had, he also had. And so then we transformed this house and it became the new center in Maceió. So, yes, so then slowly people came out of curiosity. Most people knew nothing about Buddhism in Maceió. It was something unheard of. You know, maybe they'd read a book by the Dalai Lama, but they didn't know the value of the Buddhist teachings. So then slowly people would come to the center, and sometimes Chagdud Ripunche would come and give teachings, or his wife Kadron would come and give teachings. And then slowly people became more and more interested. They decided they would like to practice. They didn't really know the meaning of practice yet, but it sounded good. What they were hearing, it sounded like, oh, maybe that is really going to benefit my life if I do that. So then we had groups of people who did different practices on different days. And I didn't speak Portuguese at all at that time, so Marcus, he had to learn English in order to translate because his English wasn't so good. But then later he became the best translator. He was really a good translator. But I depended on Marcus all the time to be able to talk to people, and that wasn't easy. It wasn't easy for me. It wasn't easy for him because he was such a busy man.
Happy to see that you're giving yourselves an opportunity to appreciate silence.
But we believe that the consciousness continues. It doesn't just stop at the time of death. It continues. And it continues with all these imprints. It's a stream of consciousness, not something static. It continues to collect certain conditions and then manifests. Consciousness is just energy, subtle energy. And then it manifests in more and more gross forms of energy, which is the physical body. This is all energy, but we don't see it as energy. We see it, because of our concepts, we see it as something solid. When we look at a wall, we don't see it as space, do we? We see, this is space, that is a wall, and then the other side of the wall is space. But we don't see that that is also space, that could not manifest if it wasn't space. So we're not seeing the nature of anything. All we're seeing is our ideas about things. It's like that. But it's not like that at all. It's never been like that. And look again, till we do see more clearly what is the true nature. We have to be scientists of the mind. Because that's what Buddhism is about. It's the science of the mind. It's not a religion. You don't have to believe anything. You're asked not to believe. Investigate, look, see what is true, what is not true. But don't just believe because someone tells you. It doesn't really go anywhere blindly. We go through a little ritual, usually. Being lost in some challenging conditions, so we don't know how to deal with it, and we consider the teachings, and this helps us from getting lost in our projection, keeps us on track so we can see more clearly. It's a reminder. It's a reminder of what's happened here. It's a reminder of your own wisdom nature. So this is what I give you. And something so simple, but actually it can be quite helpful. Yes, if we see it in that particular way. If you don't want it, if you want to get rid of it, do not put it on the ground. Please leave it in a tree, high up in a tree. No, just leave it there. Look, come up one by one. I'm going to say some mantras and some prayers, and I'm going to give you one of these individually. So please come up. I'm also going to touch your head whilst I'm saying these mantras and try and transmit some energy. So might help to remove some of your obstacles. Alright, so Sandy, please come first. I think, 2001, and 3 or 4 years maybe I was in Maceió. But not all the time in Maceió, because I had many groups in the Northeast. I would teach in Manaus, I would teach in San Luis, Teresina, Fortaleza, Natal, Salvador, Brasilia, Rio,
so all these
Belo Horizonte. I was giving teachings all the way around.
retreats and teachings.
Retreats and teachings. Yes, so I was really the main, I suppose I was the main teacher for the Northeast. Other people didn't want to go to the North. It was too hot. It was too hot for them, Manaus, places like that. But I felt, I could see the potential, and I could see that people were really interested. But it wasn't helpful to them to have such short visits where the Lama came in and 3 days later the Lama left. They didn't have time to digest. And so then I said to Rinpoche, you know, if I go up to Manaus, I need to stay 1 or 2 weeks up there. But it was very hard on my health. And then slowly my body became sicker. And then Rinpoche said to me, you can't supervise 11 centers. You've really got to just focus on 3 or 4 centers. And so that's what I did for a while. But I didn't feel that there was enough for me to do in Maceió. I didn't feel that my time was being utilized as much as it should be, because I couldn't go out of the center to teach unless Marcos was there. And Marcos, he had a big company to run.
And what about Mucugê? Your work in Mucugê?
My work in Mucugê, well, I built a temple there, and then I have some land. I have a lot of land in Mucugê. We had many visions for projects, but we never managed to get the money together to manifest these projects. I mean, my main project for Mucugê was a project on human development, on, you know, how we could really help people to develop as human beings, both, you know, physically and psychologically. It wasn't, you know, it's no good to give people teachings when they don't have food on the table. You know, they're going to be more occupied with trying to get the food together, or the health, or whatever. So then I wrote a project which was, you know, about environmental research, environmental protection. It was about health, about using alternative remedies for health in different ways. It was also about studying dying, death and dying. It was a whole project for Tantology. And it was also about training programs for communities, you know, different handicrafts, whether it was, you know, jewelry or to become a pedrero, or had many ideas to implement. But we never got it together. You know, people initially they had a lot of energy, they wanted to do it, but then when they saw it wasn't so easy to get the conditions together, then they gave up. I thought that the University of Bahia, they could use our project as a postgraduate course where people could come and train or teach other people different skills as part of the project. But then they didn't have the money to do it, so they didn't follow through. I didn't have the money because all my money comes from donations. And if people don't donate, then I can't move virtually. So we managed to build the temple, but it was all the people who had moved to Mucugê, not the people who were born in Mucugê. They were too conservative. You know, they were either Catholic oriented or they were evangelical, and anything different they were afraid of. So the people who came to the temple were all from outside of Mucugê, people who'd moved from Rio, who moved from Victoria, moved from other cities, and they were far more open, they were interested, but there weren't so many people. So, you know, if there was 10 people at the weekend, that was a lot of people, yeah. And then again, I began to think, well, what am I doing here? Because when I teach in other countries and I teach in other cities, a lot of people, hundreds of people. You know, I just came from Teresina, 300 people. The talks, a lot of interest. At least 40, 45 people for the retreat. There would have been more, but the place was too small. So I thought, well, maybe I'm not in the right place. And so now again, I'm thinking about, well, maybe I can make myself even more accessible in Minas. 4 hours from Rio, 5 hours from Sao Paulo, 6 from here. So it's easier for people to come at the weekend and to spend short time in retreats, receive teachings. If that doesn't work, then I myself will go into a long retreat, because I think it's really important.
Where?
In Venus, on the land. And then if people want teachers, they'll have to come to me instead of me traveling all the time, which is making my health. Each year it gets a bit more fragile, my health. But when I'm on the land, then I'm really well. I can do so much more. And it's also good for people to go there, because they have the environment, this wonderful environment, so beautiful, that they can rebalance when they're close to nature. And in the cities, we've lost that connection with nature. And so now it's a lot of stress, a lot of tension, a lot of control, trying to get the conditions right. Whereas when you're walking around in the forest, you begin to relax. And just by relaxation, and then the meaning of these teachings, slowly it becomes more and more clear what we're talking about, finding what is natural in your own heart, instead of always getting lost in what is fabricated. But when you don't know anything else except fabrication, you don't know what natural is anymore, so how can you rebalance? I think this time in Maceió was a very important time for many people. It planted many seeds, and I always say that's what I do, I just plant seeds. Then up to the individual, whether they put water on the seeds, take care of them.
Bambu, baobá, imbaúba. Amor, gratidão, luz, felicidade, emoção, alegria, ternura, gratidão, tranquilidade, amor, wisdom.
Where you come back, where you can hear the teachings. You don't know, so many people, they're born in different places. And even the people who live in Tibet, maybe they never heard any teachings. Who knows? Not in that kind of condition. In Maceió, before Buddhism came here, people didn't know about Buddhism. And most people still don't know about Buddhism. It's a lot of conditions, isn't it? We're very fortunate to meet the teachings.
Sim.
listen to the teaching, understand the teachings, want to practice. Very fortunate. We don't realize how fortunate. How did Buddhism help you? I'm going to ask the question.
O budismo me ajudou a enxergar mais claramente as coisas. A minha visão de mundo, ela se tornou mais pé no chão, mais evidente. Eu não tenho muitas ilusões mais como eu tinha antes. Então eu sou muito mais simples de perceber as coisas e mais tranquila em receber as coisas que o mundo estão me oferecendo. Né? Então para mim as coisas têm sido mais simples.
Do you think it reduced the conditions that generated suffering?
Acho que não, mas eu tenho enfrentado com mais facilidade esse sofrimento.
Why not?
Porque eu ainda sou bastante apegada a um bocado de coisa. E eu estou fazendo um esforço para me desapegar de muitas coisas. Então eu tenho tentado fazer a minha vida o mais simples possível, menos cheias de coisas que me alimentem muitas emoções. Então o meu ambiente de casa é um ambiente mais simples, com menos objetos, com menos coisas que eu tenha que ter dificuldades depois de me desfazer deles. Então são coisas que eu transito com mais liberdade. Então eu tenho dado tchau às coisas com mais facilidade. Ainda sofro um pouco mais fácil.
You know, what I have noticed is that many people who contact Buddhism, they don't know how to use the teachings in their daily life. They have an idea practice is coming to the center and sitting on a cushion at a certain time, certain place. But to actually take what you understand and use it in your daily life, they don't use it. They don't know how it works in their daily life. And I think this is really important. Maybe it's the teacher's fault. I'm not saying really anybody is to blame, but sometimes the way that these very skillful psychological methods are communicated is not clear. And so then people still think that practice is like this. They don't understand that practice is right now, whatever is happening in your life. This is the practice. Yeah. Look, understand, try and see more clearly what is true and what is not true, what is your own fabrication. And if you don't use the teachings in your daily life, the transformation does not take place. You have to use it, you have to repeat all the time, and then your perception begins to change and you benefit. You don't suffer so much. Otherwise, you still suffer because you still see things with the same habitual patterns, very attached to the way we see things. Yes, we don't want to let go of the way we see.